Hello everyone and welcome to a new video on the channel. Today's video is the start of hopefully a new series that I've wanted to make for quite some time. I actually started to record this video once before and then I realised how long it was going to take to record this particular video because there's a lot of things to show, and this video in question is my entire romance love story collection. There's a lot of films that, as I say, I started doing this and I got 15 minutes in and realised it's going to be more like a 30-minute plus video. So apologies if you're not interested in this sort of thing, then you can just skip around or just give me some feedback. But I thought it's a good way to show off my collection and show you the sorts of films that I enjoy watching, because all of these I believe are ones I have seen before. So let's get started. So first up, mostly in alphabetical order, I think. First up, we have 500 Days of Summer. I've seen this a few times now. It's kind of flips your normal, what you would think of a rom-com on its head. It's like an anti-rom-com about a relationship that, as you can tell from the front, lasts 500 days. And kind of the aftermath of that. Reality basically. It's a really good film. It's not too long either. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is fantastic in it. You've got very young Chloe Grace Moretz in this as well, and it's also got a fantastic soundtrack. So that is 500 Days of Summer. Next up, we have one of my personal favourites, About Time. This is a Richard Curtis film. You will know him from Four Weddings and a Funeral. I believe he may have written Notting Hill, and he did Love Actually, The Boat That Rocked, this, and he also wrote Yesterday as well, which is the Danny Boyle Beatles film. But this is basically about a man, and all the men in his family have the ability to go back through their life, and he takes this advantage to fall in love with Rachel McAdams' character, and trying to get things right because he knows that she's the one for him, but he keeps messing things up. It's a very heartbreaking film as well. It's got very sad moments in it, but it's just a great British film, and I definitely recommend it if you're into these sorts of films. Next up, we have The Age of Adaline with Blake Lively. It's also got Harrison Ford in as well, Ellen Burstyn. It's about a young girl who, I want to say in the 1930s, has a near-death experience, and from that point on, she doesn't age. So she stays looking like a 29-year-old for the rest of her life, which obviously has a big effect on her loved ones around her because they're aging and she's not. And it's a love story about finding a love that she thought was lost. Years later. It was a decent film. It's more of a drama than it's not comedy. It is a romantic drama. It's not the best that I've seen, but it is definitely enjoyable, as I say, if you're into this genre. Next up, we have a classic, An Officer and a Gentleman with Richard Gere and Deborah Winger. Obviously from the 80s, 1981. It won Louis Gossett Jr. his Oscar, and it's basically about Richard Gere's character, who's an officer, what they call officer candidate school, and he wants to be a Navy pilot, and but the drill sergeant's really tough on them, but whilst he's there, he falls in love with Deborah Winger's character, who works at the local factory, steel factory, I think, or something like that. And it's about kind of coping with the pressures of it and friendship. It's a really good film. Definitely recommend that if you're into that thing. Then we have a Steven Spielberg film, Always, which stars Holly Hunter, Richard Dreyfuss, and John Goodman. It's also got a small last appearance of Audrey Hepburn. This is one of Spielberg's films that doesn't really get talked about, and for good reason. It's nothing special. I enjoyed it for what it was. But there's another film that does something pretty similar. I can't think of what the film is though. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know down below. But yeah, it's still enjoyable. Music's done by John Williams, and that's very good. The story's a nice story, but it doesn't really build on anything. Nothing gets built on. It's quite basic, especially for a Spielberg film. As I say, it's probably one of his lesser known, weaker films, but still a good time. Then we have one of my favourite films from recent years, A Star Is Born, Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. I think this is the fourth version of A Star Is Born. Obviously about a big musician who basically falls in love with this struggling singer that he meets in. It's like, I think it's like a bar, gay bar, or something like that. He finds her, just a bar that he walks into, and they fall in love, and he helps her gain success and pushes her out into the spotlight. But he is having a lot of struggles of himself. I think personally this year Bradley Cooper was robbed of the Oscar for Best Actor. I know Rami Malek won. Overall, I do like Bohemian Rhapsody, but this film's a lot better performances just in general, and I think it should have got more Oscars than it did, because it's a great film. Next up, we have another one that I really like, Australia, Baz Luhrmann film starring Hugh Jackman and Nicole Kidman, about a English aristocrat from London in the 40s, just after the war, I think, or no, just at the start of the war rather. And her husband's just died, and she has to go to her cattle ranch that she has in Australia, in quite a remote place in Australia, to basically save it and get all of her cattle to safety, because obviously it's a lot of money for her, and she's struggling now, and she uses the help of Hugh Jackman's character, who's called Drover, I believe, and and a young boy who is there, the Aboriginal boy, to basically get to safety. And it is what I would call an epic love story, much in the vein, I'm not comparing it to Titanic, it's not as good as Titanic, but in scope it definitely is, and it's one that I highly recommend. Next up we have a German import of A Walk to Remember, probably my favourite teen romance film, the first of the Nicholas Sparks adaptations that were made, probably my favourite of his to be made. I watched this on a whim. I think I had this on DVD. I bought it from a charity shop. I didn't expect anything from it, but it really pulls at the heartstrings. It has a very unexpected ending, a very twist ending, which most of Nicholas Sparks' novels do, and it's just one that I go back to quite frequently. Then we have Benny and June with Johnny Depp, Mary Stuart Masterson, and Aidan Quinn. Aidan Quinn plays Benny, and Mary Stuart Masterson plays June, who has learning difficulties, and she meets Sam, played by Johnny Depp, who's a bit of an oddball, doesn't have many friends, but they basically sort of fall in love. And Benny, June's brother, doesn't approve of it. He just wants to keep his sister safe. And it's a comedy. It's very funny as well. It's got the Proclaimers do a song. I think it's 500 miles. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, and I believe this has just got a UK release. So now's the best time to get it if you're interested in watching it. Next up, we have probably my second favourite of the Nicholas Sparks adaptations, The Best of Me, which stars Michelle Monaghan and James Marsden, about two high school sweethearts who basically find themselves together again after 20 years apart, feeling the same feelings that they felt all those years ago, because they're returning for the funeral of one of their best friends. And they basically it's just remembering their love story, a story about true love, and it's another one where it has a twist ending that really pulls at the heartstrings, and it does definitely affect you afterwards, so definitely recommend that one. Then we have one that kind of came out of nowhere and was a big hit, and one that I really like, The Big Sick, starring Kumail Nanjiani and Zoe Kazan. Obviously, Kumail's playing himself, sort of fictionalized version of himself, because it is about him, and his life and how he met his wife. Um, and it's just it's very funny. It has very heartfelt moments. Because of, basically he has to deal with her parents because she falls ill. Um, and he's basically there for her the whole time. And his parents are there, played by Ray Romano and Holly Hunter. They're excellent in it. Um, yeah, it's just a very enjoyable watch, one that I can definitely recommend. I don't know why I keep saying that, because I wouldn't have it in the collection if I couldn't recommend it. Next up is quite a hard watch, and that is Blue Valentine, which is Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams. Another film about true love, how much love really hurts, what it means to people, um, and it's just how far you'll go for love, that sort of thing. And the performances in this are incredible, especially from Ryan Gosling, who to this point probably gives the best performance he has ever given. He's probably given better since this, because he has grown as an actor, but to this point, this was probably the best film he had done. So yeah, definitely could watch that one. Then we have Charlie St. Cloud with Zac Efron. Um, this is another like teen romantic drama, based on a book, about a young boy, Charlie St. Cloud, who basically does sailing. He does a lot of sailing competitions, but one day, um, his brother gets in a younger brother gets in a car accident, and unfortunately dies. And he's the closest person he is to him, and he blames himself because he was driving the car. And it's kind of about grief and trying to get back to normality. But there's like kind of a bit of a twist, which I won't say. He falls in love with a girl along the way. But yeah, as I say, there's a twist which I quite liked. So yeah, can recommend that one. Then we have a Kevin Smith film, Chasing Amy. Yeah, this is probably more of a comedy than a romance film, but it's basically about Alyssa, who is kind of struggling with his sexuality because she's fallen in love with Ben Affleck. He's fallen in love with her, but she doesn't know how she feels. And then his best friend, played by Jason Lee, is a bit jealous. Um, it's a typical Kevin Smith film. If you've liked Kevin Smith, then you'll definitely enjoy this one if you haven't seen it. Um, it's just a very entertaining watch. Next up, we have City of Angels with Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan. Um, Probably one of the first Meg Ryan films I'd watched. At this point, I hadn't seen Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail, anything like that. And it's just like a whimsical fantasy story of when an angel falls in love with an everyday woman, that he's basically told that he's her guardian angel, but if he wants to be with her, then he has to become human, and he's kind of battling whether he wants to go to Earth and be with her or stay as an angel and watch her. Yeah, very good film. Then we have a Western romantic epic, kind of war film as well, Cold Mountain, Jude Law, Nicole Kidman, Renee Zellweger. Basically, these two are in love, and Jude Law's got to go to fight in war. So she says that she'll basically wait for him. But as she's doing that, the town that she's living in kind of goes into disrepair. There's like a outlaw, I suppose. I think he's like some sort of official, played by Ray Winstone, I think. Yeah. And he's trying to control all the people in the area. And Renee Zellweger basically starts to live with her and helps her because she's on her own. It's a very good film, very good if you like these sorts of films, like war epics with a bit of romance in there. I really enjoyed it, and I can definitely recommend that one. Then we have Empire of Light. This one's all set around a cinema in the early 80s, and about basically these two, Olivia Colman falls in love with a much younger man, um, and it's kind of like just showing what life was like back then, and it's all around this cinema about human connection. Um, yeah, really good one. Really enjoyed this one, even though I know a lot of others didn't. Then we have another epic war um, romance from the same director as Cold Mountain, The English Patient, about a pilot who is shot down and heavily disfigured, and he's basically telling the story of the love that he lost. Um, yeah, really good film. Kind of gives Casablanca vibes. Um, yeah, if you haven't seen it, definitely give that one a go. Next up, we've got 4 left in this pile. We have Everything Everything, which is another YA adaptation about a young girl that has a rare condition which means she cannot leave her house, and she falls in love with the boy next door, which causes problems because it makes her want to leave and see the world, which she knows she can't do because she could die if she does that. I've not seen this for a while. I remember it being just average, but I wanted to give it a rewatch, which is why it's in the collection. Then we have another YA one, probably one of the most well-known ones from the last 10 years. The Fault in Our Stars, with Shailene Woodley and Ansel Elgort, about 2 young people who are ill, and they're in this group, and they basically fall in love with each other. Yeah, as I say again, based on a book. Also stars Laura Dern and Willem Dafoe, and one that I really enjoy. Next up we have Finding Your Feet, which is a British film starring Imelda Staunton as a wealthy woman who basically finds out that her husband's having an affair, so she leaves him and goes to live with her sister, who lives on a council estate, played by Celia Imrie, and she basically shows her that there's more to life than what she thinks. It's not all about money, it's about friendship, love, and having fun. Yeah, really enjoy that one. The last one in this pile we have is a Kevin Costner film, For Love of the Game, directed by Sam Raimi in what is probably one of his only drama type films, like love stories, I suppose. And it's about a baseball player who is basically looking back over his last love, looking at what he did wrong, what he could have done to keep her, because she's now leaving for another job. Yeah, and it starts with her saying that she's leaving, she's going to the airport, she's leaving in a minute, and then it goes back to how they meet and all that. It was a good film, definitely a good one that I can recommend. Now it's out of order, so we are going all over the place here. I'm just grabbing piles, so I'm going to grab them pile by pile. Next, another Kevin Smith film, probably my favourite Kevin Smith film, Jersey Girl, which a lot of people probably wouldn't say is their favourite Kevin Smith film, but I just really like it. You got Ben Affleck, Liv Tyler, Jennifer Lopez has a small role in it, Jason Biggs, George Carlin, Stephen Root, lots of really good comedic actors, and it's basically about a young dad that's basically just trying to raise his daughter, and it's very funny and very heartwarming. Then we have another Kevin Costner film. This was actually the first Nicholas Sparks adaptation, I remember, from 1999. Message in a Bottle. That I would read you the back, but it is all in German because this is the German release. I can't really remember much about it. I remember liking it. It's also got Paul Newman in it, Robin Wright. But yeah, can't really remember much about it, so can't really tell you much about that one, sorry. Then we have Morning Glory with Rachel McAdams, Harrison Ford, Diane Keaton, and Patrick Wilson, about a new producer for a morning TV show, it's basically a failing morning TV show, and they bring in Harrison Ford's character to be a co-anchor with Diane Keaton's character, and they really don't get on. but they kind of make it work and they get the viewings, and it's just very funny. And all this time, she's falling in love with, I believe Patrick Wilson's another producer on the network or whatever. But yeah, I really like this one. Especially I like it more now because obviously we've got the morning show, which is a fantastic show. Definitely recommend if you're not watching that to give that a go. But yeah, that is Morning Glory. Then we have a classic Australian film, Muriel's Wedding with Toni Collette. Has a fantastic soundtrack by ABBA. Basically about a woman who doesn't have much luck with men. Is a disappointment to her family, I suppose. And she decides that she is going to go and get married, basically. That's all that I really remember. But yeah, if you like Toni Collette, you like Australian films, then you'll probably like that one. Then we have Music and Lyrics with Hugh Grant and Drew Barrymore, about I suppose he's like a singer, has-been singer, who's basically relegated to really bad reality TV shows, but he wants to make a new song, make a comeback, and he meets Drew Barrymore's character, who's basically just been told to come in and look after his plants. And they fall in love with each other, and he helps her by opening her heart, and she starts making music for him. And yeah, it's a very good film. Then we have another pile. We have Needle in a Time Stack, which I watched recently. It's got a good cast. You've got Leslie Odom Jr., Cynthia Erivo, Frida Pinto, Orlando Bloom. But it left much to be desired. Didn't do too much to keep me interested throughout. It's a love story that deals with time travel, but most of which we have seen done before better. It was quite slow. So yeah, it was just okay. Not one that I can say I would go back to soon. Next, a classic romantic film, Sleepless in Seattle with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. About basically a man who's just lost his wife, and he goes on to a radio show as a guest, and everyone basically listens to him and feels sympathetic for him and starts writing to him, including Meg Ryan's character, who I believe is like she's a writer, who doesn't think that who thinks that it's her destiny to meet Tom Hanks' character, but she's engaged to someone else. And yeah, it's a good film, quite funny as well. You've also got Rosie O'Donnell, Rita Wilson, who's obviously Tom Hanks' wife, and Rob Reiner as well. Yeah, definitely recommend that one. Next up, we have one that I actually quite liked, Shall We Dance, with Richard Gere, Susan Sarandon, and Jennifer Lopez, about a man who is a bit of a workaholic. He just thinks that he's trapped in his life, just doing the same thing day after day. And one day he decides he's going to do something different. He wants to take dance classes for his wife. And he does, and he goes to this dance class run by, well, I don't think Jennifer Lopez runs it, but she is one of the instructors. And he learns to dance. You've got a lot of other characters in here. You've got just trying to look, Bobby Cannavale, Stanley Tucci's in this as well, Richard Jenkins, Nick Cannon, a lot of people in it. Yeah, I've seen this a few times now. It's just a easy watch, so yeah, Shall We Dance? Then we have Shakespeare in Love, which won quite a few Oscars, I think. Does it say how many? 7. Including Judi Dench, who was not in it very much. She won an Oscar famously for being in it, I think, for about 5 minutes. It's basically a sort of fictional story about William Shakespeare, known as Will in this film, who's an up-and-coming playwright, and he falls in love with Gwyneth Paltrow's character, who's like a lady or something, and is frowned upon. All the while, he's writing what is to be his biggest play, Romeo and Juliet. So it's kind of sort of that's what he bases his story on. But yeah, it's a very good film. You've got Colin Firth in this as well. Geoffrey Rush is great in this film. Who else is in it? I'm trying to look. Joseph Fiennes obviously plays Shakespeare. You've got Ben Affleck that plays his friend that helps him. Simon Callow, Martin Clunes, Jim Carter, Imelda Staunton, Tom Wilkinson, Mark Williams. A lot of great British actors in this. Definitely a great film. Then we have Serendipity with John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale, which is kind of a Christmas film. I was torn between putting this in Christmas and romantic, because obviously there is a Christmas tree there, and it does start at Christmas and it ends at Christmas, and it's about two people who meet by chance. I believe Kate Beckinsale's in a relationship, she's engaged to be married, and they get along. As soon as they meet with each other, they spend an evening with each other, and they say, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If we meet each other again, then we know it's meant to be. So they go their separate ways and hope that they'll meet again. Yeah, lovely film that is. Then we have the last in this pile, Safe Haven, another Nicholas Sparks one, with Josh Duhamel and Julianne Hough, about a mysterious woman who moves to a little seaside type village, and sparks the interest of the locals, including Josh Duhamel's character, who she falls in love with, but she is hiding a big secret. So yeah, that's Safe Haven. Next up, we'll go for this pile. So we have The Mountain Between Us with Idris Elba, Kate Winslet. I remember seeing this at the cinema. I'm really enjoying it. I actually am going to rewatch this one tonight because it has been a long time. I haven't seen it since the cinema. So yeah, that's The Mountain Between Us. Excuse me. Then we have a classic, Dirty Dancing. I've shown this set off many times before. It's just a classic film. So yeah, one to have in your collection. Excuse me a second. I'm going to go through these quick because we're at almost the half an hour mark and I've still got 3 piles to get through, so I'm only going to mention ones that I think need mentioning. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, really good Charlie Kaufman film. Ghost, just a classic. Harold and Maude, I was very mixed about this, not one that I'd rush back to anytime soon. Her, love this film. Heroes, Heaven Can Wait, Hope Floats, If Beale Street Could Talk, If I Stay, It's Complicated, really enjoy this one. Jerry Maguire, my favourite Tom Cruise film, and I'll just say, I don't know whether I've shown this before, but this was really good value for money, for what you get. Obviously it came with a slipcover sealed. You get the Blu-ray, you also get the CD, you get a digital code, and you get a little booklet in it as well. And I got this for the grand total of £5 a few years ago, which I was very happy with because I thought I was going to be stuck with the old Blu-ray, but this is the 20th anniversary edition, so fairly new release anyway. The Lake House, Larry Crowne. 2 more piles to go. The Proposal, Pretty Woman, another classic, very dusty. Paper Towns, One Fine Day, One Day, Notting Hill, another one that I absolutely love. The Notebook, another one. No Reservations. Me Before You. This film breaks my heart every time. Love Story. Love Happens. Love and Other Drugs. The Light Between Oceans. The Last Letter from Your Lover. The Last Song. And going into the last pile, not as big, this one. Very dusty again. Strictly Boring. Remember Me. Redeeming Love. The Rewrite. Supernova. Another classic coming out. You've Got Mail. Followed by another classic Meg Ryan, When Harry Met Sally. Knights in Rodant. One of my favourites next, Terms of Endearment. This is probably my favourite out of every single one of these films. Titanic, the greatest love story in my opinion ever put to screen. Probably my second favourite film of all time as well. Love this film. Yeah, that's right. Time Traveller's Wife. 2 If by Sea. The Vow. And finally, last but not least, The Way We Were. And that is it. So, kind of did half and half there. First half I kind of went slow and explained. Second half I obviously just showed and mentioned a few. Thought it was a good idea doing it that way. 1, to not drag the video out too long, and 2, I want to get your feedback. What do you prefer? Do you prefer it being a longer video and me explaining why I like each of these films and why they're in my collection? Or would you rather I just show them all quickly and just show a few, explain a few that I really like? Yeah, just let me know what you think's the best way to do it down below if you do indeed watch this video. But that is it for now. So like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Turn the notification bell on so you know when I have a new video uploaded to the channel. Comment down below anything and everything. Are there any of these that you have in your collection that you also really enjoy? Any that you can recommend to me to add to my collection that I may be missing from my romantic collection? Anything. I get back to anyone that takes the time to leave me a comment. And that's it. So until next time everyone, take care. Goodbye.